You have been spending money on pesticides every single season, spraying, mixing, repeating. And every time, the same aphids come back, the same beetles return, the same slugs finish off whatever was left standing. Here is what nobody told you. 6 plants exist that will run a complete pest control operation in your garden for free every single year without a single spray. And at least 2 of them most people pull straight out of the ground because they think it's a weed. That stops today. Here's a question worth sitting with for a second. Why does the same pest problem return every single year, no matter how much you spray? It's not because pests are winning some unbeatable battle. It's because spray is a temporary interruption, not a solution. It kills what's there today and leaves the door wide open for tomorrow. Most gardening content tells you what to plant. It rarely tells you why it actually works, down to the compound, the biology, and the placement. That's the gap this video closes.
If that's the kind of information you've been looking for, subscribe right now, because what's coming next is exactly the kind of thing most gardeners spend years figuring out through trial and error. You're about to get it in 20 minutes instead. One more thing, stay through to the end, because the final section reveals how to combine 3 of these plants into a single layered defense system that outperforms what most commercial pest programs deliver to properties far larger than a home garden. Skip that part and you'll miss the most valuable piece of information in this entire video. Plant number 1, and this one is hiding in plain sight in almost every American garden, yet almost nobody is using it correctly.
Lavender. You've seen it everywhere. Gardens, candles, soaps, bath products. Every gardener recognizes it. What almost nobody understands is the exact biological reason pests genuinely cannot tolerate it, and why the way most people plant it makes it nearly useless as real protection. Lavender carries 2 compounds locked inside the tiny glandular hairs covering every inch of the plant: linalool and linalool acetate. To us, that fragrance is calming. To moths, fleas, flies, mosquitoes, and silverfish, those compounds completely overwhelm their olfactory system. Their navigation shuts down. They turn around before they ever reach whatever you planted nearby. That is the actual biological mechanism happening every day in your garden. Here is the information most gardening content never gets to. 1 lavender plant is decoration. 3 lavender plants spaced 18 inches apart is a fortress. The combined oil output doesn't simply triple the protection. It creates a continuous scent zone, a wall, rather than a single isolated point source. That wall is what actually redirects flying pests away from your beds. For USDA zones, lavender thrives in zones 5 through 9. Zone 4 gardeners plant against a south-facing wall and mulch heavily before winter. Zones 10 and 11 treat it as a cool season perennial. Full sun, minimum 6 hours daily, and well-draining soil above everything else. Lavender sitting in wet ground will rot at the crown. Space plants 18 to 24 inches apart along bed borders, beside roses, and at doorways where mosquitoes gather at dusk. Golden tip: do not cut lavender all the way back in autumn. Leave a third of the green growth standing. It protects the crown through winter and brings the plant back strong every spring. Cut it to the ground and it may not return. Drop a comment right now and tell me which pest has done the most damage in your garden this season. I genuinely read every single one, and what you tell me will make the next plant land even harder because it solves a problem most people have never connected to a single plant.
Plant number 2, Catmint. Yes, it's related to catnip. Yes, your cat will lose its mind over it. Set that aside, because what catmint does to the insect population surrounding your garden deserves your full attention right now. Researchers at Iowa State University found that nepentolactone, the active compound inside catmint, is roughly 10 times more effective at repelling mosquitoes than DEET, the synthetic chemical inside most commercial bug sprays people spend real money on every season. 10 times more effective, sitting in a perennial that comes back every year at 0 cost. Mosquitoes are only the beginning. Catmint repels aphids, Japanese beetles, flea beetles, squash bugs, and weevils.
Nepentolactone mimics a warning pheromone insects use to signal danger to each other, the chemical equivalent of leave immediately. When insects detect it in the air, instinct drives them to flee the entire surrounding zone, not just the plant itself.
For USDA zones, Catmint grows in zones 3 through 8, one of the hardiest options on this list. It handles brutal northern winters without protection. Full sun to light shade, average to slightly dry soil, extremely drought tolerant once established. Space plants 18 to 24 inches apart. It grows into a low mounding shape around 18 inches tall, covered in lavender blue flowers from late spring through early fall. Golden tip. Cut catmint back by half after its first bloom in early summer. It rebounds within 2 to 3 weeks with fresh young foliage, and that second growth carries the highest concentration of nepentolactone of the entire season. That is peak repelling power, and most gardeners never trigger it because they never cut the plant back. If you have outdoor cats, protect young transplants with wire enclosures until fully established. A cat rolling on a fresh transplant will set you back weeks.
Plant number 3, Yarrow. This plant has been used for over 3,000 years, and modern science has finally caught up to explain in precise detail exactly why it works. Here's what makes Yarrow different from every other plant on this list. It does not just repel pests, it recruits an army to fight them for you, and it runs both operations at the exact same time. Yarrow's fine, feathery foliage releases 2 compounds, camphor and borneol. Both are volatile. They push directly into the surrounding air and create a chemical barrier that aphids find genuinely intolerable. That alone would make it worth planting, but Yarrow goes further. Its flat-topped flower clusters, called corums, are perfectly structured landing platforms for parasitic wasps, hoverflies, and lacewings, the insects that eat aphids, caterpillars, and whitefly larvae for breakfast. A single lacewing larva can consume up to 200 aphids in 1 week. Yarrow pulls them into your garden and gives them a reason to stay permanently. While its foliage chemically pushes pests out, its flowers biologically pull predators in. Nothing else on this list does both at that level.
For USDA zones, Yarrow grows in zones 3 through 9 and handles drought, poor soil, and dramatic temperature swings without complaint. The most forgiving plant on this entire list for anyone newer to perennial gardening. Full sun, well-drained soil, space plants 1 to 2 feet apart. It spreads underground by rhizomes, so plant it where you don't mind it expanding, or divide every 2 to 3 years to keep it contained. Golden tip. Here is the counterintuitive fact most gardening content gets backwards. Yarrow performs better in poor to average soil. Rich, heavily fertilized ground makes it floppy and far less aromatic. And less aromatic means less camphor and borneol pushing into the air, which means less pest-repelling power. Let it struggle slightly. It genuinely does better for it. White and yellow varieties attract the widest range of beneficial insects.
Plant number 4, lemon balm. Crush a single leaf between your fingers and it smells exactly like lemon candy. That scent comes from citronellol, the same substance used in citronella candles people burn on back porches every summer trying to keep mosquitoes away. The critical difference is that a candle burns out. This plant does not. Lemon balm releases citronellol continuously through its leaves, especially when sunlight warms them or they're brushed during a walk through the garden. It's always working. Mosquitoes, gnats, aphids, and squash bugs all avoid the surrounding area entirely. But the story goes further than what most people ever hear. Lemon balm releases a compound that directly interferes with the trail pheromones ants use to communicate. Those pheromone trails are the entire operating system of an ant colony. They direct movement, coordinate the network that lets thousands of individual insects function as one unit. Disrupt the trail, and you disrupt the colony at its foundation. Plant lemon balm near ant entry points, and you're not just repelling them, you're breaking their communication system at the source.
For USDA zones, lemon balm grows in zones 4 through 9, particularly vigorous in zones 6 through 9. It tolerates shade better than almost any plant on this list, making it ideal for partially shaded corners. Partial to full sun, moist, well-drained soil, spaced 18 to 24 inches apart. Golden tip. Deadhead consistently before flowers turn to seed. This does two things. It stops the plant from spreading beyond where you intend, and it redirects energy back into leaf production. More leaves means more aromatic foliage releasing citronellol continuously. The repelling power lives in the leaves, so protect that production. If you've been watching this and already thinking about which of these you're putting in first, that thought is worth holding on to, because what's coming next ties directly into it. Subscribe so you don't lose track of this video, because a new one this detailed goes up every single week, and missing one means leaving real, usable information on the table.
Plant number 5, chives. Most people think of chives as something chopped onto a baked potato. In a garden bed, chives are one of the most strategically effective pest control tools available, and they work in a way completely unique among everything else covered today. Chives belong to the allium family, alongside garlic, onions, and leeks. Every member shares one defining trait. They produce sulfur compounds, specifically allicin and diallyl disulfide. These compounds release from the leaves above the soil and from the root system below it. That underground release is what makes chives genuinely different. Below the surface, those compounds deter carrot root flies, onion flies, and, critically, nematodes, microscopic soil-dwelling pests that attack roots silently from beneath, causing damage that looks exactly like a nutrient deficiency from above. Most gardeners spend real money on fertilizer trying to correct a pest problem they've never actually identified. Chives quietly suppress that threat without you ever knowing the danger was present. Above ground, those same compounds repel aphids, Japanese beetles, and mites. Japanese beetles in particular are acutely sensitive to allium chemistry. Plant chives near roses and you'll see a measurable, visible reduction in beetle damage within a single growing season.
For USDA zones, chives grow in zones 3 through 9, among the first plants to push through late snow each spring. Full sun to light shade, well-drained average soil, spaced 6 to 12 inches apart, growing in neat, upright clumps around 12 inches tall. Golden tip. Let the purple globe flowers bloom fully. They're pest-repelling and completely edible. When harvesting, cut down to 2 inches above the soil line. Chives regrow within 2 weeks, often coming back thicker than before the cut. Now, which of these 5 surprised you the most? Which one are you looking at differently than you were 10 minutes ago? Drop that in the comments, because the next plant finishes this system completely, and I call it the nuclear option. Most gardeners have never once been told to plant it.
Plant number 6, rosemary. If you grow vegetables, especially brassicas, beans, or root crops, and rosemary isn't somewhere in that garden, you've left a serious defense gap wide open. And the frustrating part is most gardeners never know it's missing until the damage is already done. Rosemary's essential oil is dominated by 3 compounds working together: camphor, cineol, and alpha-pinene. That combination is chemically intolerable to cabbage moths, bean beetles, carrot flies, Mexican bean beetles, and spider mites. The camphor component overwhelms the sensory receptors of these insects so completely that they avoid the entire surrounding area, not just the plant itself. Here is the golden fact almost no gardening content ever mentions, and it's worth more than everything most people have ever read about rosemary. It is most effective when planted upwind of the crops it protects. Pest insects don't wander randomly into your garden. They navigate on air currents. If your prevailing wind comes from the west, plant rosemary on the western border of your beds. The wind carries its chemistry directly into the flight path of incoming insects before they ever reach your plants. You're intercepting them at the perimeter, not chasing them after they've already landed, fed, and laid eggs on everything you work to grow.
For USDA zones, rosemary is reliably perennial in zones 7 through 11. Zones 5 and 6 mulch heavily and move container plants into an unheated garage below 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Zone 4 and below grow in containers and bring indoors November through March. Full sun, 6 to 8 hours minimum. Excellent drainage above everything else. Wet roots in cold weather is the primary reason rosemary dies. Space upright varieties 2 to 3 feet apart. Golden tip. Prune after flowering in spring to keep the plant dense. Never cut into old brown wood.
Rosemary doesn't regenerate from bare stems the way many perennials do. Always cut back into green growth only. If you've been watching this entire video and still haven't subscribed, think about this. You just learned the exact biological compounds driving pest behavior, the precise placement strategies that make each plant work at maximum effectiveness, and the USDA zone specifics for exactly where you live. That level of detail takes real research and a genuine commitment to giving you something worth watching, and that commitment shows up every week on this channel. Subscribe now. You've already seen what that looks like.
Now here is the part that most gardening content never reaches, and it may be the single most valuable thing in everything covered today. Every plant discussed works well on its own, but 3 of them, planted together as a deliberate trio, create something no individual plant can accomplish alone. A layered defense system with no gaps, hitting pest insects through 3 completely different mechanisms at the same time. The combination is Yarrow, Catmint, and Rosemary's cousin in spirit, but the proven trio is Catmint, Yarrow, and Tansy-style allium power applied here through Chives and Rosemary. Catmint operates at ground and mid-level, releasing nepentolactone continuously into the surrounding air, creating a chemical confusion zone that disorients flying insects before they ever land. That's your first perimeter line. Yarrow sits at mid-height, running 2 operations simultaneously. Its camphor and borneol add a second airborne barrier, while its flat, open flower heads recruit parasitic wasps and lacewings to actively hunt down whatever pushes through. Yarrow is your mid-level chemical barrier and your biological strike force in the same plant.
Then extend the system. Run Chives as a continuous border for underground nematode suppression and an above-ground sulfur barrier. Plant Rosemary on the upwind side of the entire bed, intercepting incoming pests before they ever reach your beds at all. That gives you multiple biological defense layers working simultaneously, more comprehensive than what most commercial pest management programs deliver to properties far larger than a home garden. Write that combination down. Yarrow and Catmint at the corners, Chives along the borders, Rosemary positioned upwind. You do not fight pests. You build a garden that fights them for you. Golden tip. Every plant covered today is a perennial. Put it in once and it comes back every year. Bigger, more established, more chemically potent than the season before. No spray schedule, no repeat purchases, just a permanent self-running defense system that compounds in value every year it stays in the ground. If you're going to do one thing this weekend, one plant, one action, go with Yarrow if you're in zones 3 through 9. Easiest to find, least expensive to buy, practically impossible to kill, and it begins recruiting beneficial insects the moment it flowers. Zone 7 and above, start with Rosemary. Get it upwind of your vegetable beds and let it begin working immediately. One plant this weekend. That is how a self-defending garden starts. If this gave you something real, share it with one person fighting this same battle every season. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Every week, this channel brings you information this specific and this actionable. And before you go, tell me something in the comments. You just heard 6 plants that can permanently change how your garden defends itself. But here's what I want to know. Do you think most gardeners are losing the pest battle simply because nobody ever told them what actually works? Or do people just keep reaching for the spray bottle because it feels faster, even when it never solves anything? Put your answer below. That conversation is worth having.